Hey everybody. I wanted to get on here for a few more minutes and talk about something that I posted recently in reference to a mother in Chicago that lost custody of her daughter who identifies now as trans. From my perspective, and this is just my perspective, and you're certainly entitled to disagree with me, but I am also entitled to my perspective. So I want to make that abundantly clear. Something that I think is important to consider when the litigation started in her case, which is evident. I don't have a in-depth knowledge of the case, but it's just evident from what is being presented on the news right now. It was evident that the child in question identified, was identified by the courts as a female child in the scope of the early court proceedings. What I think needs to be considered is whether or not there's any legitimacy to the court system capitulating to what the child is now claiming. We're going to, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to refer to the child as the child. But what I think is important to keep in mind is if the courts capitulate with a child that is changing how they self-identify, if they're capitulating to maybe that child wanting to assume another name, another descriptor for themselves, what ends up happening inevitably is that invalidates the previous order. So, for instance, if the order stipulates that the mother is to pay child support, well, she's ordered to pay child support for a child with a specific name. And if that child is no longer going by that name and is no longer going by that gender, then that makes that previous court ruling a nullity. So the courts capitulating to this, they are actually nullifying their previous orders. This is just something to keep in mind because honestly, this is not something I believe that the courts should be weighing in on, because it's disenfranchising parents that are entitled to reasonable visitation with their children. It's facilitating parental alienation. And I know that there are a lot of people that will completely disagree with my stance on this and will think that I'm being unreasonable to not want to capitulate to the whims of a child in that situation. There are children at the same age as this child in question that want to do nothing but eat candy all day, that don't want to ever go to the doctor for wellness checks, that don't want to do their homework, that don't want to exercise, that want to play on their phone all day and not read. There are limitations on what should be permitted for a child to decide. It is my opinion that this is one of those things that a child should not be able to decide for the reasons I've just stated. And if this is confusing to anyone, then I would strongly recommend that you consider whether or not your viewpoint is a part of the problem and is contributing to child abuse. Thanks. Have a great day.